A knock at the door on a weeknight is what woke me up. I came up out of sleep like I'd been yanked by the collar. Heart already sprinting, mouth dry, the room too quiet in that way that feels wrong. For a second, I didn't know where I was. Then the shapes settled into place. The sagging couch we used as a bed, the crooked lamp with the taped shade, the thin curtains that never quite met in the middle, and the empty spot beside me. Alan hadn't come home. That was the first twist, because I didn't notice it until the knock made me sit up. Like my body had been keeping count all along, but my brain had refused to. The knock came again. Not frantic, not polite, just certain, like whoever it was knew I'd open the door eventually. I swung my feet onto the cold floor, listening. No voices in the hallway that I recognized. No footsteps. Just the hum of the refrigerator and the distant rush of traffic outside, the whole building holding its breath. I padded to the door in my socks, tugging the hem of Alan's sweatshirt down over my thighs. My hand hovered over the lock. If it's him, I thought, I'm going to be pissed. If it's not him, I didn't finish that thought. I unlatched the deadbolt and cracked the door, keeping the chain on it like it could save me from anything. What greeted me when I opened it is something I'll never forget. Alan's sister Beth stood there bright-eyed and buzzing with laughter she wasn't even trying to hide. She had her arms folded like she was waiting for popcorn. Behind her, in the harsh light of the hallway, was Alan's mother, Gwen. Not just standing, planted, like a fence post, like a verdict. And both of them were staring at me as if I was the reason the air felt poisonous. "Hi," his sister Beth said, sing-songy, like we were meeting for brunch instead of whatever this was. "Oh my God, you should see your face." Gwen didn't say hi. She didn't say anything at first. She just looked me up and down with that tight, pinched mouth, that expression that adults get when they think you've ruined something they paid for. Beth leaned forward, peeking past me into the apartment like she was inspecting a set. "Is he here?" I swallowed. "No, he wasn't." She burst into a giggle, like the timing was perfect, like I'd delivered the punchline. Beth wiped at the corner of her eye like she was laughing so hard she might cry. Okay, listen," she said, still smiling. "Don't freak out." That was the exact moment I freaked out. My mind sprinted through worst-case scenarios so fast my vision blurred. Accident, hospital, someone at the door with a uniform and a clipboard and that look. Then she said it. "He's in jail." The words hung there, heavy, ridiculous, like they didn't fit inside the hallway of a small apartment building at 2 a.m. I stared at her. "What?" Beth nodded like she had just told me the weather. "Yep, little brother got himself arrested." She said it with this gleeful disbelief, like it was a funny story she couldn't wait to tell later. Gwen's eyes didn't leave my face. "He needs to be bailed out." I blinked. "By you?" Beth laughed again, and it made my skin crawl. "By you!" She pointed at me like I'd won a prize. "Apparently, he told them to call you." Gwen took one step closer. The chain on the door pulled tight, a thin metal line between us. "Do you have money?" she asked. The question knocked the air out of my chest. Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "Where is your family?" Not even, "Why is my adult son living with a 16-year-old? Just, "Do you have money?" I could have lied. I should have lied. But I'd never been good at lying to adults who already questioned my existence. Something in me always tried to prove I was not what they thought. "I have some," I said. "How much?" she snapped. My throat tightened. I could see my envelope in my mind like it was sitting on the table in plain view. Cash I'd been peeling off every paycheck from the machine shop, folding it down, tucking it away like a tiny safety raft. Rent money, food money, escape money, if I ever got brave enough to admit that's what it was. Beth leaned in, eyes glittering. Ooh, she's got secret money. Gwen didn't smile. He says you have money saved, she said, like she was accusing me of hoarding water during a drought. He says you're responsible. Responsible. My brain snagged on that word so hard it almost made me laugh. Responsible was me showing up to work with grease under my nails and my hair still damp because I'd showered in cold water. Responsible was me eating saltines for dinner so we could pay the rent. Responsible was me counting coins at the laundromat and pretending it was normal. Responsible was not bailing a 21-year-old out of jail at 2 a.m. But the hallway felt too small, and Gwen filled it with her anger like smoke. I could feel neighbors behind their doors, awake now, listening. I slid the chain off and opened the door. Gwen walked in first, like she owned the place. She took in the apartment, our mismatched furniture, the ashtray on the windowsill, the pile of work shirts on a chair, with a look that said, I knew it. Beth waltzed in behind her, still amused. This is so wild, she kept saying, like she was narrating a reality show. This is like the most Alan thing Alan has ever done. I shut the door, aware suddenly of how exposed I felt in Alan's sweatshirt, bare-legged, hair a mess. My stomach twisted with something that wasn't just fear, it was humiliation. Gwen pointed toward the kitchen like a judge pointing to the witness stand. Where is it? The money? I asked. Yes, she said. We're not standing here all night. All night. Like this was an inconvenience to her schedule, not a fire in my life. I went to the little drawer where I kept the envelope under a stack of takeout menus. My hand shook as I pulled it out. It looked so thin in my palm for how much it meant to me. Beth leaned over my shoulder, too close. How much is in there? She whispered like we were best friends. I didn't answer. Gwen held out her hand without asking. I hesitated. That envelope was my proof that I wasn't completely trapped. It was the one thing that felt like mine. What did he do? I asked, forcing the words out. Why is he in jail? Beth made a face like it was adorable. He got in some stupid thing. Mouthy. You know him. He just can't shut up. Gwen cut in. He was with his friends. They were drunk. He wouldn't cooperate. She said it like she'd rehearsed it, like she'd said it to police before. My chest tightened. Is he hurt? Gwen stared at me like I'd asked the dumbest question in the world. He's fine. Beth grinned. He's probably having the time of his life in there. I looked down at the envelope again. My fingers were sweaty on the paper. I could feel the weight of the money like a heartbeat. Gwen's hand was still out, so I gave it to her. And the moment the envelope left my palm, something in me went quiet. Not relief, not surrender. A cold, clear click. Like a lock turning. Gwen didn't even check how much. She just tucked it in her purse like it belonged there all along. Get your shoes, she said. We're going. It didn't sound like an invitation. It sounded like an order. I found my jeans in the heap by the couch and shoved my feet into sneakers without socks. The whole time, Beth kept up her cheerful commentary. This is gonna be such a good story later. Mom, remember when Alan tried to fight the vending machine? Oh my God, imagine him in orange. Gwen didn't respond. She just stood there, stiff with anger. Like if she moved wrong, she might shatter. On the way out, I caught my reflection in the dark window beside the door. Pale face, wide eyes, hair tangled. I looked younger than 16. I looked like someone's kid, which I guess I was. The car ride was the longest 10 minutes of my life. Gwen drove like the road had personally offended her. Her hands gripped a steering wheel so tight her knuckles were white. Beth sat in the passenger seat, twisted around to face me in the back. She was enjoying every second. "So," she said, drawing the word out, "how's living with my brother? Like, do you guys play house? Do you cook him dinner? Do you, wash his clothes?" I stared out the window at the streetlights streaking past. "It's fine." She laughed. "She's so serious, Mom. She's so serious." Gwen's voice cut through the car like a blade. "He should not have dragged you into this." I turned my head, startled. But she didn't mean it kindly. She meant it like, look what you are to him. A tool, a wallet, a mess. "And you should not be here," she added, eyes hard on the road. "This is not a life for a girl. A girl. Not a child, not someone's daughter. Just a girl. Like I was a category of trouble." Beth made a dramatic sigh. "Mom, please. She's basically an adult. She works and everything." I felt my face burn. I wanted to scream. "I am 16, I wanted to say. Your son is 21. I wanted to ask why no one ever said the obvious thing out loud. But the weirdest part was this. I couldn't tell if they were blaming Alan or blaming me. It felt like both. The police station sat under bright lights that made everything look sickly and exposed. The lobby smelled like bleach and coffee. The chairs were bolted to the floor like they didn't trust anyone to behave. Gwen marched to the counter, purse clutched tight. The officer behind the glass didn't look surprised to see her, which made my stomach drop. That meant this wasn't new. Beth leaned on the counter, smiling at the officer like she was flirting with the concept of authority. "Hi," she chirped. "We're here to pick up a very stupid man." The officer's eyes flicked to me. Just a quick scan, my face, my clothes, my posture. I felt myself shrink under it, trying to look older without knowing how. Gwen slid the envelope out of her purse and flattened it on the counter like a card in a game. "How much?" The officer said a number. Even though I knew the money was in there, even though I'd saved it dollar by dollar, the amount sounded unreal when spoken out loud, like a price tag on a person. Gwen didn't react. She just opened the envelope and counted, fast and precise. Beth craned her neck. "Ooh, she really had it. That's kind of impressive." I stared at the floor tiles, suddenly nauseous. The officer asked for a name. Gwen gave it. Papers slid through a slot. A pin on a chain appeared. Gwen signed without hesitation. Then, because nothing in this night could just be one kind of awful, the officer looked at me again. "You're with them?" he asked. I hesitated half a second too long. Alan's mom answered for me. "Yes." The officer's eyes stayed on mine. Not unkind, not kind, just assessing. "You his girlfriend?" he asked. Beth laughed. "Yep, isn't it adorable?" Gwen's jaw tightened. The officer's expression didn't change, but something in the air did. He looked like he wanted to ask another question and decided not to. Or maybe he asked it with his eyes and didn't need words. I forced my face blank. I forced my voice steady. "Yes." The waiting part was the worst. We sat in those bolted chairs under fluorescent lights that hummed like angry insects. Gwen stared straight ahead, arms crossed. Beth kept trying to flirt with the officers, who just ignored her. And I sat there with my hands folded in my lap, trying not to shake. I kept thinking, I'm here. I'm really here. This is happening. This is my life. Because that's the thing about running away. People think it's all motion, all drama, all big choices. But most of it is just sitting in places you shouldn't be, waiting for consequences you didn't choose. And after what felt like forever, a door buzzed. A hallway opened. A man walked out. Alan. He looked rumpled and irritated, like he had been forced to wait in line somewhere. There was a faint red mark on his cheek, like he had slept on something hard or gotten shoved. His eyes flicked to his mom, then his sister, then landed on me, and he smiled. Not grateful, not relieved. A smile that looked like, "See? Told you she'd come." "Hey, babe," he said, like we were meeting outside a movie theater and not a police station. Gwen stood so fast her chair scraped. "Do you have any idea?" Alan cut her off with a hand gesture. "Mom, chill." His sister clapped her hands once, delighted. "Oh my God, you look like trash." Alan grinned at her. "Love you too." Then he turned back to me, stepping closer. "You did it," he said softly, like it was romantic, like this was proof of devotion. I stared at him, and something inside me, something that usually rushed to defend him, soften him, explain him, stayed still. Maybe it was the envelope leaving my hand. Maybe it was the officer's eyes. Maybe it was the way Alan's mom didn't once ask if I was okay, because in her mind I wasn't a person in this story. I was a resource. Alan reached for my hand, casual and confident, like he owned that too. I didn't pull away, but I didn't squeeze back. "Let's go," Alan said, already moving toward the exit, like the night was over and he'd won. Gwen followed, furious and exhausted. Beth bounced along beside him, still entertained, and I walked with them, quiet as a shadow, feeling the weirdest thing settle in my chest. Not fear, not love, a plan. Because when you're 16 and you've been surviving too long, your brain starts to do this thing. It stops asking for permission to want better, and it starts counting exits. Outside, the air was cold and sharp. Alan threw an arm around my shoulders like a victory flag. "You saved me," he said, laughing. I looked up at the black sky and the glaring station lights and thought, never again. And as we climbed back into his mother's car, her anger filling the front seat, his sister's laughter filling the space between them, Alan leaned closer and whispered, "I'll pay you back." I didn't answer because I already knew he wouldn't. The car pulled away from the curb, tires hissing on wet pavement, and I stared out the window, watching the police station disappear behind us, thinking about the envelope that used to be mine, thinking about how quickly a life can become a debt, and already thinking about how I could escape once again. If you or someone you know is dealing with an unsafe living condition, coercion, or control, you deserve support and options. In the U.S., you can call or text 988 for the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And if you're in immediate danger, call 911.